Hello, hello, hello.
Hi.
We're back with another podcast episode of Mad Commentary. Mm-hmm. Should we do our jazz? So
yeah.
You gotta say Mad Commentary.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Okay,
sorry,
again, okay.
Mad Commentary. Kind of go for the jazzy sound that you were going for.
Yeah. I liked it. So, you guys, we don't really know what we're going to talk about today quite yet, but we wanted to do it, keep the consistency going. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about what's been going on. We have the election happening in real time.
Ugh, politics.
Yeah, I like politics, but this thing is like really ugly.
I don't even want to talk about politics.
We don't have to talk about politics. We had guests.
Yes.
Was this yesterday?
What?
Yeah.
I think it was yesterday.
It was. The whole world is in a fog, I think, right now.
Yeah, the days go by so weird.
But, so my mom came and visited me, my dad, and my little sister. And I also had a friend come by, one of my longest child. She's known me since I was 11 years old. Shout out to Shara. How long is that?
That's like 60 years of friendship?
60? Did you say 60? Oh, that's funny to you. Okay.
Wow. That's
anyway.
Almost a century.
So, anyway, she became my friend when we was in the Muslim cult.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's how we met each other in the Ansar Wallah community, I guess you could say.
So interesting that you were in a cult. Like, you were actually in a cult.
Yeah, I was. And then to have my mom there, we call her Umi. Yeah, that's what I call my mom, Umi. I call her mommy. When I'm talking to her, I call her mom or ma or mommy, depending on what my mood is going on. But generally, I call her Umi.
I call her Umi, too.
Yeah, and that's from us being in the cult, and we spoke Arabic, and Umi is the Arabic word for mother. So my Umi was here, and to have her here visiting at the same time Shara visited, it was like this weird thing because me and Shara connected in the community, and then to have my mom here, and she brought me in the community. So, you was there. We had a lot of conversation about being in the Muslim community, in the cult that we were in. And it was healing a little bit, I think, because I think those of us who were children in it, some of my peers who were in it, their parents are still in denial about what happened because they were invested in the cult life. Meaning, with cults, it's like this: you're an adult in the cult and you're following through with everything that's going on. But if you have children, your children are under you, so they fall prey, literally. If the parent is already a prey to the cult situation,
right?
The children become like super prey because, unlike the parents who can say, "Well, I don't want to do this anymore," or like in our cult, you wasn't with your parents, so you got separated from your parents. When we moved in, I wasn't with Umi. I was with girls my age, and it was being run by another sister. So you're not even with your mother like that, I think I saw they called it tifl time, which is baby in Arabic, the dialect we spoke, and they had tifl time, and that was like 7 to 9, and your parents come and visit you, or you can go to where they were in the house they lived in and hang out with them, or you just talk to them on the phone. The phones were all set up where you can call each house. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was a whole system.
It was a whole system. It was
I have a question about it though.
Yeah.
So how did Umi like prep you or mentally let you know, or what kind of conversation did you have before you were basically being put into this community?
Well, we weren't really having much conversation. It was just things were changing in the house. So my mom and stepdad at the time started wearing like face veils and Muslim attire. And then there was always the Dr. York, or Rabboni as we called him at the time. They had at the time he would have been Imam Isa.
So who was the head of this?
Imam Isa, a.k.a. Rabboni, a.k.a. Dr. York.
And just before we get into that, where is he now?
He's in jail for hundreds of years. I think
hundreds of years?
It's either 127 or 123 years they gave him for the crimes against children, molesting children. I don't know if if trafficking children was on that, but I know it was crimes against children. Molestation, and a delinquency of a minor. It was a lot of stuff to do with minors and sexual deviancy and molestation and things like that.
Where were you when he was arrested? Were you already out at this point, or?
I was technically still in. We were still in while the court cases was going on, and you know, my dad, my I don't call him my stepdad, but the man my mother married, who we call affectionately Abu.
I call him Abu too.
Right. One of his children was a part of that court case. One of my I guess you could say my stepbrother was one of those children affected in that. So we were in it.
You were in it.
We were in it, but they still had pictures of Dr. York up in the house. It wasn't like anti-Dr. York. It was just anti... I can't even say what the anti was. I think anti-abuse. Like Umi already had said, she thought stuff like this was going on, but she didn't take us out of it. We were still in it.
Yeah.
And I remember I was the one that said something after the court case was done, and like a year later, and I said, why do we still have his pictures up in the house? Dr. York, why do we have Rabboni, Imam Isa, whatever you want to call him, why are his pictures still up in the house? And they did take them down eventually. But yeah, that whole so it was just listening to the propaganda. We heard the
so it was like a slow transition.
The slow transition that we didn't know we were transitioning. We just thought they were exploring. I thought they were exploring a new religion, and it didn't hit my childhood life until the Christmas before we moved in.
So you guys were Christian before?
I was baptized Seventh-day Adventist. We didn't really go to church like that. Yeah. There wasn't much religion in the house. It wasn't like my mother never raised us on like, well, God and Jesus. It was like almost like we were nothing. We were West Indian. We were Trinidad. Our religion was Trinidad.
Right.
And family. That was the religion. We hung out at grandma's house, cooking food. So I would say before that, our religion would have been family in Trinidad. And then...
So you realize around Christmas...
Yeah, because I never forget, because it was the Christmas that I had... That summer, I had learned how to ride a 10-speed bike when my friends had a 10-speed bike. So I was really good at riding it. I loved it. And so that Christmas, I had already had plans for asking for a 10-speed bike. Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to get this bike. And then I remember Umi saying, we're not celebrating Christmas this year. Up until that point, Christmas was like a real Christmas. We never... got less than 10 presents each, and not like 10 presents like a Barbie doll and Barbie doll clothes, like a Barbie house, a Barbie truck, 10 Barbie dolls, wow. Limited edition Barbie dolls, baby dolls, Play-Dohs. It was like sets. Like we had big Christmases, big boxes,
Those are the best Christmases.
Like it was just like when we would go to grandma's house and like there'd be all these presents. The whole room the tree would be packed, half the room would be presents. And most of those presents would be for me and Daniel. I miss it. Yeah, what a time. So I'm coming from that kind of Christmas where we getting everything we want. And that year I only wanted a bike. So I was like, the biggest, easy. That's easy. And then my mom was like, well, this year we're not celebrating Christmas. We're doing Kwanzaa. And I was like, Kwanzaa? What's that? And I don't think you even really did it the way you do it with all the days. Yeah. I just think on Christmas morning, I got this Cabbage Patch doll. That was all I got. And it was the ugliest Cabbage Patch. I hate to say that because I loved Cabbage Patch dolls. I was getting them anyway all the time. But this one I didn't want.
I think Cabbage Patch dolls are ugly.
In general?
Yes.
I love them.
They horrify me. Why would you even want one of those? I can only imagine what it look like back in the 80s.
80s? This would have been 90s.
Girl, I don't know. So, yes, right, because it's after you turn 10, so it would be the 90s.
So, she just was not a cute doll. It wasn't even that she was a black doll, because she was dark. It was like they found it was a very, very dark Cabbage Patch, and I hope I don't get a lot of flack. She was very dark, which wasn't the problem, but it was all the other things. She had this gap. Her hair was like this weird. It was one of the ones where it's like you could do their hair, so the hair was wiry and not it just wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I wanted. I didn't like her outfit. I didn't like how she looked. It wouldn't be the kind of doll because Cabbage Patches came with a birth certificate, so they were like your little babies, and I had so many. and I didn't want this one. It was like having a child you didn't want.
God.
I felt, and it was all I got, and it was like, so all I got was something I didn't want, which was to me equivalent of not getting anything.
Yeah, in fact, that's almost like worse, because then you can't even complain about not getting anything because you did get something.
It was so far on the scale of what I did not want. And at that time, I was phasing out the dolls anyway.
Right.
So it's like, you're getting me a doll that I'm not going to play with. I don't like her. Didn't ask for her. It's like an unwanted baby, unwanted pregnancy.
Oh,
I don't want this. I can't have an abortion. And I think I did, like, either leave that doll somewhere or
that's a doll that you just...
I conveniently forgot it somewhere. Yeah, it was some weird stuff with that.
Yeah.
And then that summer, that would have been December.
Mm-hmm.
By July, we were moving into the community.
I have a question. I never asked this about the community. Is it like literally a community? Like
it was a community in Brooklyn, New York. We owned
Uh-huh.
houses. We had a masjid, which would be the Muslim equivalent to a church building.
Uh-huh.
So we had our church building. There was a bookstore. There was a restaurant. And there were like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... about 9 buildings, I want to say.
9 buildings.
In New York City, in Brooklyn, in Bushwick, Brooklyn.
Mm.
And I think a few of those buildings might have been brownstones, if I'm not, I could be wrong at this, trying to think about all these details, but they were big buildings, and we were the only ones living in them. We owned them, or we were leasing them, or however that goes.
Yeah.
So there were no civilian people in them.
It was just purely that community.
It was just our community, and when I moved in, we were still wearing face veils, and so it's just a bunch of Muslim people in Brooklyn, New York. And I think there's like a few newspaper reports about it. The most famous one that everyone talks about is the one in New York Times of where did the Muslims in Bushwick go, or something like that was the heading. Meaning we changed our garb after a while because Dr. York said there was going to be a war on being a Muslim. So we changed from wearing traditional Muslim garb to wearing more like Hebrew Israelite garb, which for anyone who doesn't know, that looks more like how the Indians dress, like Hindu Indians.
Isn't that still how like G grandma dresses a little bit? Is that?
No, it's more like the Indians, Hindu Indians with the red dot, and they have on like the very decorative pants and long
So
tunic.
what is the cultural history behind the kind of garments that your grandma wears sometimes?
What do you mean? She just wears printed dresses.
That's not cultural or something?
Maybe African
Sometimes
or Caribbean style.
Because it's not all the time. Sometimes you just wear regular, like...
I don't really know what you mean, because I've seen everything grandma wears to me is regular clothes.
No. Well, sometimes she'd be wearing something that seems a little cultural.
Like with the headdress and the matching dress and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like it's like a whole outfit.
That would be more like African or Caribbean culture, where you have a nice print flower dress on, and you have a head wrap that matches it. That's Afro-Caribbean type of look.
Well, sometimes she wears, it would be like a pants thing, or like a... I haven't seen it in a while, so it's hard for me to visualize exactly what I'm trying to say. But I was just curious about that.
And then eventually, after the Hebrew Israelite wear, we went into cowboy Western wear. Yeah, don't it?
So what does that even mean?
We were literally wearing like people walk around with 10-gallon hats and cowboy boots and Wrangler jeans.
What era was this?
This would have been the early 90s. 93 into 92, something like that.
Wow.
And then from the cowboy Western wear, we went into and with the cowboy Western wear, that was more about the Native American. Like, basically, Dr. York took us through his make-believe lineage. So it starts off being a Muslim, and then his family's royal Muslim people coming out of Sudan or whatever, which we found out later is all made up. It's not real. It's like a myth. And then from there, we go into more Hebrew Israelite, doing more Hebrew things.
Yeah.
Being almost like, what do you say, like Jewish type stuff, you know?
Okay.
And then, even though I don't think Hebrews and Jews are the same, but it had like, whatever I have witnessed with Jewish people culture, as far as like the challah bread and things like that, certain things you hear or see in Jewish culture, when we were doing from the transition from just Ansar Muslims to like this Hebrew Muslim type of person, and then from there he went into his Native American lineage with us. And so we were wearing cowboy wear and Indian feathers and things like that. He was calling himself Chief something at the time. And then from there, we went into we went to Egyptian Christ consciousness. So by then we were just wearing regular clothes, but being modest about it. Mm-hmm. And at that time we were wearing what they call ninty braids. So it was this braid on the side of your head, and all the women were shaving their hair off really low and had this long braid on the side of their head for right knowledge or whatever it stood for.
And I guess that's why I got the kind of name I got.
That's why you have the name. You have a name because I mean your dad was a young disciple in the community. Yeah. And I met him at one of the weekly. We had every summer for like 4 days. Dr. York would have this big celebration for his birthday on the land. We called it. And so he was the sound guy, the music guy there. That's how I met your dad, doing sound and music for Dr. York. And I don't want to say like an arranged marriage, but it kind of felt like that. Me and he talked to Umi and Abu. Yeah. We weren't being intimate or anything. I was he would have been 24 when I met your dad, and I would have been 16 when I met him.
So was that like normal to have that kind of age gap kind of thing going on?
And by the time we consummate the relationship and everything like that, I would have been 17 and graduating from high school. And so he took me to my prom. Your dad took me to my prom and stuff. Pictures. Yeah, and that's a whole story in itself. With
the prom?
Just how it is.
That relationship?
The relationship and the dynamic. And then, like, when you, like, so for instance, when it was discovered that me and Tariq were talking, which would have been the summer I was 16. And so what happens is Tariq is already living on the compound in Kadesh, which is Edenton, Georgia compound. And what is standard is when the young girls, sometimes when they get a mate, that's what it was called. Before they get a mate, they were requested to come to the land. And a lot of times if your mate was on the land, you would be thinking you're going to be with your mate and y'all going to live on the land together. And what they would do is they call me up there to live on the land, and then they send Tariq off. They sent him off the land. So why would you send him off if you knew we were talking?
What is the goal?
Right. The goal is so that I could have a moment with Dr. York.
And what's the moment?
Have sex.
So
basically he would have first dibs on me before my actual mate did.
Gross.
It is gross. I never did have that moment because even though I lived on the compound for a month, I was clearly not what they were looking for. So I was sent off the land. And
they sent you off the land.
Well, he hypnotized me or something. Something happened where we had a conversation, and it was like I woke up in the conversation. So we're talking. Dr. York is talking to me by myself. We're on Kadesh. We're in what we call the office upstairs. It's just me and him. And he's asking me how I like it. I'm like, I love it. You know, I'm all culted out. So I'm like, I love it here. This is my new home. I can't wait for Tariq to come back. Blah, blah, blah. Woo.
Yeah.
And then it's like I'm having this conversation, but then it's like all of a sudden, it's like I blinked for a very long time. Yeah. And when I opened my eyes from the blink, I remember I'm hearing myself say something about my mother, but I don't even remember what I just said. And then it's dark outside. But it was like light afternoon when we started talking. Right. Like early evening. It was summertime. Yeah. So it was like, I want to say 6 or 7. And by the time I blink really hard, it seemed like for a long time. And my mouth is saying words, but I don't know what I was saying. Yeah. It's dark outside. And then he was like, okay, well, you know, have a good night. And I went to the house, the bait that we lived in, Arabic word for house, bait. And when I woke up the next morning, I went back to the office like you do. You get up, you go to the office. And before I could go in the building, one of the sisters came to me and said, okay, well, Shaloma, which is my Muslim name, my Hebrew name. Dr. York actually gave me that name.
That sounds a lot like Salima's name.
Yeah, Salima has my little sister's named in a way for me, after me. So she had, meaning my name is Hebrew, Shaloma. And her name is Arabic, Salima, but they both mean the same thing, which is peaceful one. So the sister pulled me to the side and said, Shaloma, we've already called your mom and she's on her way to come get you. And so we're just going to send you home. We think you need to go be home. You seem like you're sad. And I'm like, oh, I'm not sad. Why you say I'm sad? I'm not sad. And then I started crying because I felt like I was being rejected from somewhere that I thought I was going to be at forever.
But really, you were being protected.
I was really being protected, yeah. And I remember when she said that, and I walked out the little building, and I saw Rabboni, Dr. York. And I say, Dr. York. And he looks at me, and he turns around, and he takes off running. the thing about it is when I talked to Shara about it and a lot of other people, he was always running from people. It seemed like
that's so funny.
There's a lot of stories of him running from people. Like he don't want to talk to you, so he's running from you. So and Umi came and got me, and that's when I got sad because. But I think with the series of events, what happened, how I got up there was that we had gotten into a really bad car wreck, and an uncle you never met, Jelani, died in that car wreck, and it changed the trajectory of our lives in such a way, dealing with that type of grief. Umi losing her son, people losing their lives in that vehicle. It was a 16-passenger van, and two people died. It wasn't just our family; it was other people in it.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, we were coming from the celebration of Dr. York's birthday, and we were going back with my stepfather at the time, which would be Kaleem, Uncle Kaleem's dad, and we were going back with him.
You guys don't have the same dad?
Me and Kaleem had the same dad.
This whole time. I don't know why I thought that.
So me and Daniel had the same dad.
Oh, but Kaleem
and Jelani had the same dad. And then Salima and
Joshua
had the same dad. Right. So my mom has been married 3 times.
Okay.
So we were going back. They were going through their divorce. Well, they already went through their divorce. Umi was ready to be married at this time.
It was Abu.
With Abu, yeah. And Preston Shem, he said he wanted to see his children, including the stepchildren, which would be me and Daniel. And him and Daniel had a really good bond. So we were going back to Philadelphia from Edenton, Georgia.
Yeah.
And
how old were you at this time?
I would have been 16.
Oh, you were 16, that's right.
And then on the way to Philadelphia, we got into I don't know. I'm not sure in the story whether he was withdrawing from drugs, if he was on drugs at the time, if he just fell asleep. That's a whole nother conversation that I'm really, at this point, I'm not sure of the actual details, but that was floating around, his drug use and then dozing off or whatever happens. And we hit one of those big metal poles that's in the median.
Yeah.
So we wrapped a 16-passenger van around that. I almost went through the windshield. So upon impact, when I woke up after the impact in that vehicle, I was underneath the windshield. Like I was in the 16-passenger van. I was all the way in the last seat. Me and Daniel were in the last row of seats in this vehicle. Upon impact, we were asleep. So we didn't.
Oh, so you didn't.
I didn't even know what happened. I just woke up like something you just wake up. You woke up after impact.
Yeah.
And when I woke up after impact, the windshield was on top of me.
Was it crushing you a little bit? Or was it just like on top?
It was just on top of me. Like, when I tried to pick, like, I realized I was laying on my stomach.
So you were like...
Yeah, I was laying on my stomach, my hands down by my face, like that, like laying down flat. And when I pushed when I pushed myself up to get up, I felt something in my head, and I'm confused because I went to sleep in the back of the vehicle. And this looks like it's the windshield. It's kind of dark. It's at night. And I'm like, this is... And you can't really see anything because it's dark.
Yeah.
And so I just go backwards.
Yeah.
I just take... And I'm able to do that because at the time we don't know that all the other seats have folded forward.
Oh.
So I'm crawling back over seats. I'm starting to hear people moan. I get back to the back of my seat and I realize... we've been in an accident.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long I was out because by the time I realized we were in an accident, people are running towards the car. I hear the ambulance. Oh. They smash out the window where me and Daniel are in the back seat.
When you first woke up, was there an ambulance already out there?
I couldn't tell that.
You weren't.
I wasn't cognizant of any of that yet.
So by the time you got to the back,
I'm aware that and I'm really realizing there's a panic around me. There's people around the car. I could hear and see ambulance coming.
Yeah.
And then someone's breaking out the back window and they pulled Daniel out.
Was Daniel just still in the back?
Daniel was in the back still, and he had hurt his leg really bad with a big gash. And at that point, people are going around the vehicle helping other people out of it. And I'm already out. And when they bring Kaleem out, my little brother, and how his face looked, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
It was very scary to see your brother's face disfigured like that. And I started crying. And I did have a lucid moment where I remember at this time in high school, I was doing my own nails. And I remember I had just did a set, and it was like this black blue color that had like this sparkle in it, so like the nighttime sky. And I would never forget. I mean, I don't know why I had this thought, but all this is happening, and I'm laying on the grass, and my brother's crying, and the lady in the car is crying, and it's all this stuff going on. and they're just telling me to lay down. They put me on, I guess you could say, like the ambulance gurney thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember I'm on that, and I just put my hands up against the sky, like up in the air, and I'm looking at my nails against this big. Oh, it was a very clear night. All the stars were out. It's a summer night, and I remember looking at my nails. I'm like, this was a really good set. None of them broke. I remember feeling that, saying that to myself, and feeling that way, like amidst all this chaos and grief, my nails.
I mean, you were flying from the back to the front. And that's so crazy. I didn't even know that you flew.
Which would have been my second time almost going through a wind chill. Yeah, I've had some traumatic life experiences, near-death experiences. It's hard to keep a bad bitch down. Yeah, I'm indestructible.
Yeah. So when that accident happened, that's what kind of was like the turning point of coming out the community?
That was the turning point where they had always been asking Umi, could I come up there to be groomed, I guess, for Dr. York or whatever, how that goes? Me. The people in the office, in the administrative of the community, I guess you could say, the admin office.
They were calling for you.
Always, since we first came into the establishment. And my mom was always like, no. And she's told us yesterday, what could Dr. York teach my daughter? Because they kept saying, let Dr. York teach her and she can get, personalized instruction. And my mom kept saying, teach her what? So she didn't send me. But now our family has this big accident that's happened. She lost a child.
Yeah.
My stepdad lost his child. There was people in the accident who died, were disfigured for life, things like that.
Yeah.
And so the family was fractured in a way. It was a trauma to the family unit.
Yeah.
And so they asked for me to come down there like a couple of weeks after the accident happened. And I guess my mom, I wasn't comfortable coming home yet. I didn't feel, so that whole accident, I didn't want to be home. I didn't want to be in the house with my family at the time. It was going through a lot emotionally. And what happens is my mom agrees to send me to Kadesha this time, which is in Edenton, Georgia, the compound. And so I went up there after all of that. I was up there like 3 weeks after the accident, if that.
Yeah, so not even like a full month, really.
Yeah. And so I think they thought that maybe I was in a place of trauma where they could have used that trauma to get into my mind or into my body. And it just didn't work that way because it was, first of all, we're in nature. I love nature.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of outdoors. So I'm healing myself and I don't even know that at the time. I'm outside all the time.
Yeah.
My mother sent me with food because there was a severe starvation diet, which I didn't know I was going.
Starvation diet?
Literally, when my food started to run out that Umi sent me with, she sent me with a big, I remember when you could buy trunks at Walmart, these big trunks.
Yeah.
And it was full with tea, dry, all these non-perishable things, fruit cups, nuts, teas, things that I wouldn't require, honey, things that I wouldn't need anything but like a pot of water to provide. Yeah. Not any really food, like salted food, like oodles and noodles or anything like that.
Yeah,
but snacks, things that I could sustain myself on. Dry fruit, nuts, trail mix, fruit cups, teas, all these different teas. And I had a lot. She told me to keep the lock on it and keep the key to myself.
That's fine.
Yeah, and I didn't understand that until I got there and I saw that literally when my food started run out, that's when I started really eating with everyone else. I remember I was only there for a month and maybe a week. And in that month and a week, they went grocery shopping one time. And I remember that food lasted all of a week. And the rest of the time, everyone was trying to living off of flour, bread. You take flour and water and you mix it together and you make this rough type of bread.
Yeah.
They would fry it in a pan with a little oil or put it in the oven, make this hard cracker type bread. And potatoes. Lots of potatoes. And so there was a lot of fries, French fries. But then what would happen, because it was a starvation diet, what they would do is the people who was in charge of the food, they would make the French fries for the dinner. That would be all for dinner, French fries. And the potato skins would be saved for the next day, and they would have fried potato skins. And I wasn't really noticing it because I had food.
Yeah, you was eating.
And I was, and the way I was eating, it was like I was going through a cleanse because I was just eating dry fruit, nuts, and teas. And I was healing from this traumatic thing that just happened. And then before the food runs out, of course there's fish, there's some salad, there's rice, but it's still very not full meals. It's not satisfying meals. But then here's the kicker. you would see Dr. York in his personal space, and he had like a front porch that was screened in, and he would be out there eating dinner in the evening, and he would be out there eating dinner, and it would be, what I remember would be, it would be colors on the plates, because you can't see through the screen, like a tinted type of black screen. But I remember seeing
like
his
white
plate.
And beige.
No, it was like green, reds, like pepper, like he was having full course meals.
Right.
And then it would be so, and I would notice the fact that all these young ladies and young children would be like how you see in movies where if someone goes to a third world country and all the poor people are like surrounding them like begging.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be begging, but they'd be like begging for his attention while he's eating dinner, and it would make me feel. And I would stumble upon this. It wasn't like I was out there. I would like be just in nature, walking around, minding my business, and I would hear people talking. I'd go where they were talking, and I'd note, and that's how I figured out where his house was at, and everyone would be. I saw the crowd of people. But they were like, it was like they were looking in, and they were like, hi, everybody. And he was like ignoring them and eating his food and just talking to the people with him. And it was just weird. It was a weird vibe.
So weird.
It was a very weird vibe. Cult life was very weird.
So, you met my dad in the cult, right? You said he was
what we call a young disciple. So someone who taught the knowledge and broke it down. He was a younger guy, and he was known for being like a playboy. You know, he's light skinned with the light eyes. And I remember when we started talking, everybody was like, "Ooh, he's." And it turned out he was a player. That's what he did. Our whole relationship was just cheat and abuse me and all this crap. Yeah. So I was happy to get away, and he had a baby on me. So I was. You were like not even. I think you might have been 2 or 3 months when he tells me this other woman is pregnant from him. Not to mention when I was pregnant with you.
Wait,
the women,
was the baby born?
Yeah, he has
so there's a I have a half sister somewhere who's like my age.
She would, if you're 21, she would be maybe
like 20 or 19.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that would be the ones you were talking to on the phone those years ago. Remember you had some little sisters that you would call?
I thought they were younger though. They sound like, because I was like 16.
Well, she had another child from him, so there was a younger child that was like 3 years younger than the original one, I think, or something like that. I felt like the one I was then he had another. I think he has like 4 daughters.
Yeah, he got a couple, but I didn't know there was one that was that close to my age.
Yeah, there's one that's close to your age, but okay, maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe it wasn't that she had the baby. He told me he had a baby on the way, so she might be a good year after you. So.
News to me.
The woman, I remember talking to the woman, and she said she didn't know about me.
Yeah.
And when she found out about me, she couldn't understand what was like, you know. Yeah. But then she said at the same time she was young, and so she was like, "Well, he's mine now," and I really didn't want him anymore.
Okay, sis.
I mean, in full disclosure, I didn't get with Tariq because I loved him, or I was wanting to love him, and I thought we would make a good match because we had so many things in common with music and being very creative people in that way, entertainers already in our own right. And he was a rapper. I was already acting in high school, and I had a charm with the camera, you know. I was very painting and all that stuff. So yeah, in the end, I really was trying to get out of my mother's house. I really wanted to be independent of the rules and how Umi was raising us at the time, because we were still in that Muslim community in high school. So there was a lot of control. There was a lot of like no freedom. And then we're Muslims, so that so my brothers had the typical Muslim upbringing of boy children, where they basically seemed like they could do whatever they wanted to do. And then for us girls, we were under tight lock and key. It seemed like we were always on punishment for things that didn't make sense, like this control. Yeah. And I didn't like that control. And I wanted to create my own way out. And Umi said, well, if you go off and you get pregnant, you can't. And so that's how I made my decision. Like, I'm going to go get pregnant, and I'm going to go be with this guy, and I'm going to start my adult life. And I didn't know he was abusive the way he was, or liar the way he was. And then even after the fact, with the whole Dr. York thing going the way it did, he's still very supportive of that. He never said anything bad. He acted like somebody made it up. He acted like it's a lie. He don't really talk about it. When I try to bring it up, he was like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about that." And of course he took that part, like his dad died. It always made me wonder, did they have a thing? You know, I don't know. Right. Because from the rumors, he was sleeping with some of his male disciples and male students and young males that were in the community. Jesus. Right. It was a whole mess of cesspoolness. Like,
yeah.
And it changed me because, I mean, we weren't in school. We were homeschooled.
Yeah.
But what that really looked like was, like, we weren't in school. My biggest memory of school was that they were trying to, and that was when my mother became a little bit what we call in charge. Mm-hmm. So he had a Muslim community in every major city, some smaller cities, and a couple of them overseas, like London, wow. Trinidad. He had Muslim communities in different places, and so he couldn't be in all these places. So there were people who were like in charge to make sure it went the way he wanted it to go. Yeah. And so Mom became one of those people. And so under her tutelage in the Brooklyn community, she made the note that the children need to be not just roaming around all day doing nothing. Mm-hmm. And by this time we're wearing, cowboy Western clothes. So it's a lot more relaxed too, because we're not under the strict Muslim way of being anymore. So we're pretty much wearing regular clothes. We're doing regular things. And we're not even doing class. We're not making salat no more. So we're not even Muslims at this. Whatever we were doing when we was Muslims wearing face veil, by the time we were wearing cowboy Western clothes, we not doing none of that stuff.
Right.
Some people still doing it, making salat, but that's like, you didn't know who those people were. You just know some people were still doing it, Mm-hmm. So it just changed everything was changed so many times. And so Umi, when she became in charge, my biggest memory of being homeschooled, I guess you could say, wasn't a math or a English lesson, was we learned how to bake a cake. We were Muslim girls, so we was taught how to cook, how to sew.
Did the cooking class help, though?
I mean, I was already cooking.
Right.
I was already cooking because Umi let me be in her kitchen. I always had a thing for food. So me baking a cake was... What that did was then I just told Umi, like, outside of class, I want to make more cakes. So I had this thing where I was always baking.
Yeah.
And some of them look ugly. I remember some of the kids was teasing, like, that's an ugly cake. Like, we're kids. I was about 11, 12 years old. So... And embroidery, not even real sewing, but embroidery. I learned how to do like this little butterfly stitch and things like that. Cooking and cleaning and sewing.
So I've noticed that, because I come in and I join YouTube, I've noticed you've been watching a lot of like cult TV shows or cult documentaries. It's
been very cathartic because I still have challenges based on how I was raised. Mm-hmm. So, like, I realized in the past year or so, like, when it's time to fill out paperwork, especially anything with government, I got to put my Social Security on or things like that, I get extreme anxiety. Yeah. Because there's a part of my brain still running on those cycles of, like, the government's going to get you, the government's evil, the government this. That's why I think even with this whole election thing, it's weird for me because of how I was raised in the cult and the information that was embedded in my psyche that I'm still pulling out. Yeah. And when I watch the cult shows... It is cathartic in the way that says, first of all, I'm not alone. Mm-hmm. The people who it happened to in the group that I was with, like, we're not alone. Yeah. Because, like, the NXIVM cult, that's white women and white people and people with money. So, yeah. And then you have, like, the carbonation people. That's more of that's coming to light, which I didn't know it was just so, that it was that bad. I read that book, How to Get Out of a Cult, written by Sybil. And, you watch these things, like, people see it from the outside and they're just saying stuff like, oh, how could you be in that? Think for yourself and all these things. But you don't know until you join something like that and then you realize you've given up autonomy. You've given up yourself.
I feel like in a lot of ways that all kinds of people are participating in cult behaviors or activities without being... groupthink without being in a, full-blown cult. Like this... So when people are like, how do you even do this and that? It's like, haven't you ever followed anything blindly or just go, hasn't anyone ever convinced you of something, even if it wasn't true or whatever? Like, it's happened to all people. So.
And then they're using information that when you're, as a black person, most of us are Christian or something or nothing. And you're just living life and you're living in the world like everybody else trying to figure it out. And and you deal with systematic racism and all these other structures that seemingly just... thwarting every good move you might want to make, and then someone comes along with answers to that. And like Umi said, she joined because it was like all these black people together from the outside looking in, taking care of one another, dependent on one another. And when she moves in, they stole from her. They lied to her. They put her in, I remember they put her in this room that was full of roaches, and it wasn't like that was the only room available. It was like they was hazing my mom. But what she did, it was a whole apartment. I mean, everybody else was like people was sharing spaces.
Yeah.
So if there was an apartment in the building, it would be like 4 sisters and their children in that one apartment. For whatever reason, with them hazing my mom, and I think it had to do with something like when she moved in with a lot of her furniture and stuff, and they told her to just put it in the masjid. And when she came back, her stuff was stolen, broken into. She made a fuss about it. She went and got, you heard the story yesterday, she went and got one of her beds from one of the brothers' houses, and all these things went down. So I think because she was assertive and she spoke up for herself, that made her already like an issue coming in. So they didn't put her in accommodations. They put her in, I remember it was an apartment, and so she had her own apartment, like a kitchen, bathroom. I think it was like one little bedroom.
Yeah.
But when I say, like, if anyone's ever seen the movie Joe's Apartment, it was every kind of roach that exists. There was the big cockroaches, the flying cockroaches, the little cockroaches, the tiny cockroaches.
Ugh.
It was like you were like, why is the wood moving? Like, or why is the furniture? Why is the wood on the cabinets look like that? And then you realize you're not looking at wood. You're looking at a blanket of roaches.
It was that much?
It was that many roaches.
Oh,
everywhere. And I remember she opened the fridge, and she told me we was up under her, and she opened the fridge, and it was like,
so it
was roaches, maggot. It was so stink.
Yucky.
So but guess what she did? You know how I'm I got a Virgo mommy. Within 2 weeks, and I guess a few hundred bombs later.
Yeah, I can't even visualize.
She turned it into a really nice apartment to the point where they moved her out of it.
Oh, she made it too nice. Yeah, no way she was gonna stay in some shit like that.
Right. Yeah, and then Daniel came to live with her because when the boys, the living conditions were deplorable. The girls were a little bit better because I guess it's girls and women, right? Mm-hmm. But the boys, where the young boys lived, holes in the wall, dirty.
Where did they get all the money to even?
Well, we had a bookstore, and so Dr. York created a way to make money. So he created his own doctrine. He had his own books. He was publishing his own. We had our own books that we were selling.
Yeah.
And so when you joined the community, the men would go out and work, and they would sell these books. In addition to selling books, that we sold oils, incense, and some people sold jewelry as well.
Is that why Abu has a whole jewelry, incense kind of?
Yeah. Even to this day, yeah. And we was in a flea market for years, still doing that here. And we had a bookstore when we first moved to Augusta, Georgia. So that's what happened.
So were you guys still like in the community when you came down here to Augusta?
Yeah, I remember the first day of school, and Umi gave us the cult speech. And it was like, you go in this school, you're not like these people. And we had to pray. We did the I am in love with the all is in love with me. I don't know if he created that prayer, but that was the prayer we were using. You still hear people saying that now. I'm in love with the all is in love with me. I am one with the all is one with me. I can be all that I want in the all, or I can be like all this.
Yeah.
And so we had to recite that before we left program and make sure we know who we were. And then we were told, like, don't miss the bus because we didn't have a car. So we're not going to come get you it's going to be a problem. My parents aren't working a traditional job, so there's no money coming in to get a cab or something like that. And then what sticks with me was Umi saying to me and my brothers and sisters, don't give anyone your phone number. And if you give anyone your phone number, let it be a teacher or someone who could help you with something, like give you a ride home, or basically told not to make friends. And if we gave anyone our number, it needed to be someone that we could use, someone we could utilize. And that was a little bit different for me because remember, I wasn't raised in that. So to be back in the regular world, going back to school, I was 13 in the 9th grade after being out of school for almost 2 years, meaning I graduated from elementary school, 6th grade in New York City, from PS 138. Then we joined the Muslim community after that summer. And I hadn't been in a school or anything like that for 2 years. And now I'm in Georgia, and I'm in 9th grade because I scored high. I have a high reading aptitude, so I scored high enough where they didn't put me back in middle school like they did some of my siblings, and I was able to be in 9th grade at 13 years old in Georgia, and it was hard. I didn't know. I think I was making like 30s and 40s in my report card. It was challenging for reasons of we didn't dress like the other kids. We're from New York, so when I say we was from New York and Georgia, we was from New York and in Georgia. So I was dressed in, like, at the time the style in New York was like that, like Aaliyah, that baggy clothes look for girls. And I was wearing Afro puffs, like Lady of Rage. So I was wearing these Afro puffs, and then it was like a trend to like have a certain type of sneaker in New York and look a certain way. And in Georgia, it was the extreme opposite: fitted pants, fitted jeans, K-Swiss. Which in New York, if you saw someone with K-Swiss, you like, what is that?
Right.
Like, even though it's a name brand sneaker, it's like you a simp. Like you a herb. That's what you say. You a herb.
What's a herb?
Herb is like a simp, like a punk.
Oh, okay.
So to come down here and see everybody wearing herb ass sneakers, and then teasing me because I'm wearing Reeboks or Adidas or LA Gear, whatever I was wearing at the time, it was different.
Yeah,
it was different.
The culture is totally.
It was It was very child. I got teased a lot. Your mom was teased relentlessly. I was bullied. I was physically bullied. It was a very rough transition. 9th grade.
When did the bullying tone down?
The bullying actually never toned down for me.
All throughout high school?
I want to say by 11th grade, I was no longer the beginning
of 11th grade. You
wasn't
like targeted like that.
What happens is we moved to like downtown Augusta, and so we went to Laney. And I remember one girl tried to bully me, but what happens is there was some other kids from the Muslim community who lived in downtown Augusta who were also going to Laney.
Yeah.
And then by that time, it wasn't just me in high school; it was me, my brother Talut, Daniel. So, and then there was kids at Laney who was from New York. Okay. So we just kind of made this New York crew. So this one girl tried to bully me when I first got there, but then someone was like, "Oh, I know her cousin," even though that person wasn't our cousin. They were just other kids in the Muslim community who's from New York, whatever. And so it just got to the word spread that it's a whole family of another New Yorkers. So all the New Yorkers that were in the school found us.
Oh, wow.
And it was around the same time that this girl was trying to. She's like little tiny something. And I think what happens is because Laney's an inner black city school, and I have the kind of hair that I have. It wasn't many girls in the school with hair like mine, and this young lady was like light skinned with hair like mine. So I think she saw like a competition thing.
Yeah, it do be like that.
And so I was the new cute girl. I don't know what she was thinking. The point is, the New Yorkers wasn't having it.
Right.
So we squatted up really good, and then I didn't experience bullying like that anymore.
Did you have like a strong New York accent when you came down here?
Very much so, and that was I remember constantly being told at Hepzibah High School, which was a school I started at, we're not guys, because everything was like, "What's up, guy?" Saying guys, and it was like, we're not guys. I was constantly.
I've heard a lot of people down here say that though. Like if you say, "Hey guys," like even in school, sometimes if you say that, there'll be certain girls who are like, "I'm not a guy."
Yeah.
Like, okay.
And I was saying "yous" and certain New York, and they're like, "What did you say?" Like how Grandpa talks. You's gotta understand, like that, that old school New York kind of way. So it's certain little, and they would always be like, "So you go into the mall, Stacey?" I was like, "Where's the mall?" And they'd be like, "Ooh, she said mall."
Oh yeah.
And they were like, "So
I do that to you."
They was like, "Say mall." They're like, "You want some water?" Say water. I'm like, "Water." And they're like, "Oh my god!" It was like this thing.
I mean, I do that to you.
You do that to me.
I kind of wanted to ask you just now to give us a little bit of a New York Stacey.
I think our New York
era.
accent is so cheesy now because I've been in the South so long. And and when I was in New York City, because I came from Trinidad, I had that heavy Trinidadian accent. And they put me in the inclusive class, which teaches kids who have really strong, heavy accents how to enunciate. So that's why I have this type of tone.
That's why you talk the way
all
you do.
crapper and news reporterish. Yeah.
I remember one time when I was younger, I think I was either in the 6th grade or 5th grade, and my friend came over, or she was in like the yard or whatever, and I had asked you if I could go play with her or something like that, and you said whatever you said, and when I came out, she was like, "Is your mom like white or like light skin?" And I was like, "What makes you ask that?" She's like, "Because of how she talks." I was like, "No, my mom's darker than me. The fuck, bitch."
I don't know. It's just something I learned to speak this when I was 7 years old, coming from Trinidad. Like,
can you do a Trini accent?
I think my Trini accent is total trash. I think mine's
is worse.
I think I have a general fake West Indian accent, so I call it a general fake West Indian accent. So it's like, I don't know what to say, but it would sound like, growing up in a cult is like, it's difficult and it's different because you don't have what everybody else have, and you're living in a situation where you're not with your mother and your father, and sometimes you're seeing people being abused, and you're seeing people having certain things happen to them that's not good and not
I think that's so good. I could never do that.
To me, I feel like I'm mixing up accents, Jamaican, Trinidadian.
It does sound, like you said, this sound very general.
It's a very generic. It's not how grandma talks.
But it's not like how when, like that one scene that Brad Pitt was in when he was speaking. It's not like that.
You're talking about with Meet Joe Black?
Yeah, and he was talking to that lady.
He said, you want ting. He said, me not come for you today, not your time.
But see, the way you said it even sounds better than the way he said it.
He said, don't worry, lady.
Yeah,
he didn't have your time. I come back for you.
It was so bad.
Something like that he said, but it was bad.
It was very bad.
It's just like the lady in the cult show with the Rockadooshies or whatever, Ruthless. And the woman who spoke Jamaican.
She's supposed to be Jamaican?
I don't know what she is. I don't know what she's supposed to sound like. But that accent is annoying as hell.
I thought she was trying to sound like
she's
regal.
Like, we're the Rockadooshies, and we're coming to the Rockadooshies. And
she'd be making me angry just from hearing her talk.
You have to understand the Most High is here for you. It's like, what did she... What?
So here's another question I was wondering about. Mm-hmm. So when the whole Dr. York, like, being arrested and all that stuff was going down, did it feel weird for people to talk about something that you were, like, very much involved in? Like, outsiders?
I didn't hear outsiders talk about it. It was so weird.
Maybe because it was in a different age. Like, if it was done now, you probably could easily go online and see people talking about it.
Now?
Yeah, like
no one talks about it now. It's like no one...
No, I mean, if it started happening now and, like, it was put on social media.
I don't know, because... I feel like that's what's happening with those people at Carbonation. To me, it's the same thing with Dr. York.
But you can still go on social... Like, people are talking about it on social media. Though.
Yeah, they are talking about it.
Like,
but they're not talking about it in a way... Yeah, they're not talking about it in a way, to me, that's, like, helpful, though. They're talking about it in a way like it's entertainment. Like, to me, even the young man, Eligio, even though he's my age, I'm calling him a young man, but that's how I see him, as a young person. I think because he needs help.
I think because how all the information is being presented, it's not... There's no, like... police or like it's because it's coming from the individuals itself. People see it more as like a tea or drama versus but like there's a whole fucking
I'm a person who grew up in that type of situation, and it does affect you. It does affect you. So I've gone through therapy. I still do therapy when I feel it. I do a lot of journaling. It's what actually helped me to establish the company I have now, to use my spiritual gifts and talents to help other people have clarity, you know what I mean, and like people who want to have that. I love being a part of a community. That was so good, having children to play with your own age and growing up with like Shara. I met her when I was 11, 10 years old, and we're still friends now. We're in our 40s. We're in our 40. We're both 40. I'm gonna be 40 this year. She's already 40, but it's kind of interesting to me, and it's so good to have someone to talk to about these things. Mm-hmm. And that's helped me a lot lately with the healing of that, to be able to have honest, transparent conversation with another person that was in that situation with me, because most of the children and young people who were in it, they don't talk about it, and they have a lot of problems and they don't talk about it, and it's like they just don't talk about it, and you can tell they've been traumatized greatly by it. Yeah, so I'm glad I got out, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When he got locked up, I went a little crazy.
Like it was withdrawal kind of thing?
Like major depression, I was 18, 19 when he got locked up, and it was kind of like my whole...
Was already born at this point?
Mm-hmm. Mm. It's like my whole adolescent life gone, teenage life gone for this organization my mother was a part of, that we became a part of because she wanted to be in it. Yeah. And I miss a lot of what I considered milestones that would have helped me better prepare for the world. Prepare for us to be a functioning, capable part of this dysfunctional ass society we have.
I feel like a lot of people go through that, and without even have to be in something as extreme as a cult.
When your parents don't prepare you for the world?
When your parents prepare you for the world, especially, I feel like through some kind of control, whether it's through, like, religion
because our parents was in that. Like, I remember being in high school, and in Augusta, there was this place called Future Call everybody could go work at, and they accepted you, like, at 17 or 16 if you had the work release permit or whatever from your parents. And I told my mom, I was like, I can go make some good money. I want to work. I want to start being more independent. And she was like, no. And it was like, but I could do it. I have a ride. I can make it happen. And she was like, no, you cannot go to work. And I think it was because, you got to keep that control.
Yeah.
Yeah. It made the parents be like police for your children. So instead of raising us and relating to us and engaging with us as children. It was more like we were just little foot soldiers in the organization for them.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
To carry the message forward, to carry the work forward, to work in the flea market on the weekends. And, you know, it was just a thing.
Just cogs in the machine.
Just cogs in the machine. That's what it felt like when I got to be like. So that's why my 20s and my early 30s with Umi was rough. Because I was making sense of all this stuff, and I had so many questions, and I had so many emotional hang-ups about what I perceived I missed and what I did actually miss. You know?
I feel like this kind of goes into something else that I wanted to try with the podcast. So I wanted to do like a question from the listeners kind of thing, like an advice corner kind of.
Okay.
So,
like to wrap it up, a solution.
Yeah, so if you're listening and you have any questions for advice, it could be anything at all, and we can put our 2 cents in, give some, pointers, whatever, from our perspective. Feel free to DM us on Instagram, Mad Commentary. So that is M.A.D_commentary. Again, that is M.A.D_commentary. DM us there, and you can send like your questions that you have.
Yeah.
So here's one question.
Oh, okay.
That I asked from someone who's listening, and they liked our episode so far, and so it's kind of a all over the place kind of question.
Okay.
So they was wondering how. First, the question was, how do you beat your inner negativity, right? And I was like, all right, that's a little vague, give me a little more information on that. And they're wondering how to overcome negative sides of yourself, like procrastinating, self-degrading, bad habits, anything that might affect yourself and other people. Like a battle between, as they described it, your body and your mind. Like,
oh, yeah. So what I always go to is that the heart is the first organ in the body that's created, the heart. So I like to say, put your hand over your heart and go from there. Should I get up and do this work right now? Right. If your heart is like, yes. Your mind might say, I'm tired. I don't feel like it. I don't think I can do it. Defer to your heart. Your heart would not lead you wrong. It would just lead you in the journey.
That's really genius, because sometimes when I'm like struggling to do something, my body would be like, no, you like laying down, right? And then my mind would be like, girl, do you want to do all this? But like, I know like deep down in my heart, as cheesy as that sounds, I'm like, but you really want to do this
thing.
Is what you want to do.
So I always say, when it comes to a battle between the body and the mind, don't listen to neither one. Go with the heart. And that means you have to be open to yourself. You have to trust yourself. And that sometimes is more painful than for some people who are not used to relying on their heart. It's going to be different. It's going to feel weird because you're not used to trusting that part of yourself. But to me, that is how I healed. And that's how I learned. Because I learned that even if I would listen to my heart and I wouldn't have a good experience in certain ways, I felt strong afterward. I felt like I listened to myself. Meaning, so even if it didn't lead me where I thought it was going to go, it would, right. It might not have led me where I thought it was going to lead me, but in the end, it led me somewhere really great where I knew more about myself. I had more self-accountability.
How does someone even start to try to listen to their heart if they've practiced not trusting their heart?
I say keep it real simple. Put your hand over your heart, literally, and ask your heart.
So it's like a physical exercise.
Yeah, it's like a physical. I mean, you're bringing your body and your mind into subjugation to your heart. And in a lot of sacred texts, it says that's where God lives, in the heart.
Right.
Lead with love. Give yourself a chance. So I don't like to go back and forth between the body and mind, lower self, higher self. That's how some people would put that.
Yeah.
I like to go right to the heart of it. Or some people say matters of the heart. What are the matters of the heart? What are you feeling about it? And not what are you emotionally, not emotions, not what emotions you're having about it. Like, I'm angry, I'm sad, which are based on thoughts that you're having or memories. A feeling is just like, I believe in myself. I believe I can make this happen. I have faith in myself. A feeling is like, I want to do this, but when I think about it from the heart space, I don't feel like it's a good idea. I don't feel like it's what I should do. So you listen. I think it's easy to listen to your heart when it says do it. It's exhilarating, especially if it's like a new challenge. But it's a little bit challenging to listen to your heart when it says don't do it, and it's something you think you want to do.
Yeah.
That's still my struggle. Like, I want to go get that extra bowl of ice cream, and my heart's like, do you though? Do you need that? It's like
a self-control
you just go eat the ice cream and cover your heart, like
right, but like
don't look. And then you have indigestion later, and you're like, I should have trusted myself. My heart said
to me quite often. Yes,
Taurus vibes, food.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So, yeah, that's what I would say. When you're in a situation where someone is trying to tell you what to do, like a cult, they rule your heart. I mean, they try to run over your mind by giving you a lot of information to make you think.
So if this person's had experiences in the past where other people are trying to control their actions, especially through like a religious cult or religious like control.
And then the body control comes from telling them what to eat, where they should live, how they should dress. So now they're controlling your mind with information, and now they're controlling your body with rules.
Right. So then as you're trying to figure out your own self out, you could be struggling to try to listen to your own heart because you've had other people putting so much
in your mind and telling you what to do. And then you're in something called epigenetics, which I've been studying for a few years now. There's something called body is mind, which means your body has its own chemistry. So if you get up every morning and you eat Cheerios and you run for a mile, then you come home and you play with the dog, and then you read a book, and you do that every day, your body develops a chemistry to that, like a chemical situation that drives you to do these things. And so when you're trying to change it, your body may act up. Meaning,
and that's why people have a hard time fixing, like he asked, like bad habits.
Yeah,
Your
body will be like, what do you mean we're not having Cheerios this morning? And so you're trying to have Fruit Loops, and your body's like, I feel sick, I feel nauseous. And so you think something's wrong because your body's acting like it's nauseous, but really your body chemistry is just used to having Cheerios every morning.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of override that and keep going if you'd like to have Fruit Loops now.
Right. So if you don't want to be eating Chinese food all the time, but you're still going to go get Chinese food, that's
your body running it.
Yeah, that's not you control.
And you can't use your mind and say, well, I'm just going to go eat something else. You have to use your heart and say, I really don't want Chinese food, and I'm going to honor that. You have to talk to yourself. You have to. It's like the heart. When I notice when I work with my heart, it draws in everything because the heart is first in the body. Yeah. So before you have skin, you have a heart. Before you have lungs, you have a heart.
Right.
Before you have a brain, you have a heart. Before you have even sex organs that work, you have a heart.
Right.
So with the oldest intelligence, where you would have been living while you're being made and formed in your mother, would have been in your heart. So I just like to defer back to the heart.
Well, I think that's really good advice, especially with the way we broke it down. I feel like...
So if you feel like someone's controlling your mind and someone's controlling your body, you have control over your heart, and it may be a little battle, but it's a battle that's worth fighting.
Yes. Well, I think that's a good way to wrap up the episode.
Okay. Yeah, this one went a little longer, girl.
It was not as long as the other one.
Oh. Okay. I think anytime I talk about cult stuff, it slows down time for me a little bit.
It felt like you were talking longer than you were. Like, it's just a lot of information.
It's so much information.
I can tell there's still more you could even just talk about. Yeah, I feel like that's how it is for a lot of, like, traumatic experiences. It's like, there's so much. It's never just a simple, quick little, oh yeah, this happened. It's like so many layers.
There's layers, and then
as you get older and you think about it, it's like there's even more.
Yeah, of how you felt, how you thought at the time, how you felt after you got out. What do you think now? What was okay? It's an ongoing conversation. And what I've noticed is that watching these shows with all this cult stuff, not only is it cathartic, it gives me a nice reference point to know that I'm not in that anymore.
You're not.
I am not in that, and I am not moving that way, and I'm not joining any new cults anytime soon.
And you're listening to your own heart.
And I'm listening to my own heart these days. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you guys for listening.
Yeah.
Don't forget, if you have any questions, DM us on Instagram at Mad Commentary. And
tomorrow we're going to be doing this again,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed the full episode. This is really interesting to hear you talk about cult life. I'm always interested in that. But yes, thank you for listening.
You guys make sure to share this and download it. And like Amanat said, hit them DMs with some questions about this episode or any episodes, or even any episodes, anything you'd like us to discuss. You guys have a great evening.
All right. Night.
Night. Mad Commentary.
All right. Yes.